Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Nick McRae and you're watching Helpful Hebrew, where we learn a new Hebrew word every day. Over the past few days, we have been walking through the first few verses of the 23rd Psalm, and so far in English what we've learned is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. And then today's line in Hebrew is Al-mei Menuchot Yenachaleni, which traditionally is translated as something like, he leads me beside the still waters. Literally, if we're to translate that just in the most literal way into English, it would be something more like, near waters of rest, waters of a resting place, he leads me. So near waters of a resting place, he leads me. And I think these two words, the menuchot, the resting place, in the traditional translation, it makes it sound like it's just kind of still water, like the water's, either it's just like a calm pond and there's no ripples, or there's no movement in the water. It kind of makes it sound like that with still waters. But to me, reading it in Hebrew, it really looks more like it's not so much about the waters, but it's about that resting place, the waters of a place of rest where we can be refreshed on the water, which I think is interesting. And then that last word, Yenachaleni, it comes from a word that means to lead. He leads me. But it's an interestingly specific word in Hebrew. It can mean just to lead, generally speaking, but it's usually used in reference to like leading livestock to water specifically. And is actually there's a Semitic root behind this word is common to other Semitic languages. So for instance, in Arabic, this same root is for a word that means something like to give drink to someone, to give drink. And so, and also the ancient Akkadian language, another related language, this root word kind of means to moisten or to make something wet. And so you see it's interesting, something about leading someone to water, leading to a place where they will have drink. So it's about, leading the flocks to water. We don't have such a specific word in English as they do in Hebrew, but it's really useful in this context to have that. And so a couple of places we can look at in Hebrew scriptures to find these words used is, first we can look at in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, and this is retelling the story of the people of Israel at Mount Sinai. And Moses has just received the law, received the 10 commandments, and now it's time for the people of Israel to set out from there, to wander through the desert in search of the promised land, the place that God is leading them to, where God will take care of them. And so, in fact, God will take care of them all along the way, as they will find out. But in in Numbers, I've always got Deuteronomy on the brain. In Numbers, chapter 10, starting in verse 33, we read this. So they, the people of Israel, set out from the mount of the Lord, 3 days' journey with the ark of the covenant of the Lord going before them, to seek out a resting place for them. And so they are departing the mountain to seek out that resting place. And of course, as we read in the 23rd Psalm, that resting place is in the presence of God, where God will take care of them and provide for them. One other place we can look is in the book of the prophet Isaiah. If we look in chapter 40 of Isaiah, we'll see this sort of great prophecy of the day when the people of Israel, who are at this point are in captivity in Babylon, but this is the day when the people of Israel will be comforted and rescued from their captivity. And if we read Isaiah 40 starting down at verse 11, it says that God will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. And so that word lead is the same one that's used here in Psalm 23. And we can see that it just sounds like it's just being used to lead the sheep. But then if you look at the very next verse, in verse 12, it says, he who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand and marked off the heavens with a span. And that's talking about God. So it's funny. It's like he will lead the sheep, and the very next thing we see is water, leading them to water. And it's the water of refreshment, the water where their souls will be refreshed. Of course, we'll talk about that next week. So thank you for joining us. Join us again tomorrow as we learn more of the 23rd Psalm.